That is cool. I like that.
Scott gave me that.
Huh.
Oh yeah, his is wood. It's got a wood base, I think.
With the wood, yeah.
Yeah. Jerry and I belong to the Nixie Club of America
Right.
Society Club organization. Well, it's International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And without them, we wouldn't have got to the moon, right? I mean, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Uh, Herschel wouldn't have made all those discoveries, right? We wouldn't know the distance to the universe. So there's a lot of Carlos Hernandez says, Happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Caesar Brallo, there he is. I haven't seen him in a long time. Hey guys, a special pleasure to see you. Ready to return to global star parties again. That's great. And Harold Locke says, good afternoon. Mike Wiesner, watching from Arizona. Yep. Caesar says, yes, it's a very important day. Yes, it is. Yeah, Cameron Gillis says hello from dusty snow in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and James the astrophotographer says good afternoon.
I'm getting my TV turned on so I can watch the show from my TV.
Here we go. Okay. We are sharing this with the Women in Science group. I'm going to share this in Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math group. So I think John Dobson kind of blew everybody's minds yesterday on the Winter Star Party.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you watch that part?
No. I've seen other videos of his on YouTube.
Have you?
Yeah. Where he's
really got
grinding a
into it.
mirror, where he's showing how to grind a mirror and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, he gets into cosmology big time in this this talk. Okay. You guys hear me all right?
Yep.
So you didn't keep those headphones from when you were in the control room, Jerry?
They were my personal pair. I had several pairs of them over the years, but I didn't steal them from the plant, if that's what you're asking me.
Is that what I'm hinting at? Is that you stole those from the plant? Dominion's going to be sending you
That's something that's
bill with interest.
Generally, with your security clearance, they frown on that kind of behavior.
They do, stealing. Yeah, that's true. I thought they would just think you were being really clever,
Yeah.
Whoa, that was a way back shot right there. That's for sure. So what you saw was a picture of me when I was like 26 years old. And that was when I was with Craig Weatherwax at what was to become, or we were creating OPT at that time. So, and that was back during the Halley's Comet era. And we were sitting there with our, I'll show you again, our Halley's Comet shirts. These are glow in the dark shirts. And as of about 3 years ago, I still saw amateur astronomers still wearing them, and they still glow in the dark. So, I'm not sure what that glow in the dark stuff was made out of, but it could have come from the nuclear power plant. I don't know, so, and I'm not saying. But anyways, today our special guests on this special day of this International Day of Women and Girls in Science is Terry Mann. And Terry, thanks for coming on to the show. I know you've done tons of stuff for Girl Scouts and Sally Ride Science and probably a lot of other programs that I'm not sure of. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And so how do you feel? I mean, this is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And I would definitely, you've been involved in many of these programs. I mean, over the years, that you have been involved, and it hasn't been too many, okay? But because you're only, as you said, 21 years old. So
Yeah, well.
all kidding aside, you've done a lot, and I'm sure you've changed the lives of many girls for the better. And getting them involved.
Yeah.
How would you characterize all that? What would you say?
It's been a lot of fun because I think from the very beginning when I got into astronomy, I come from a very small area, a very small town. There's no observatories, there's no universities, university. I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And I always wondered when I was a kid and interested in astronomy, if somebody would have been in my area, would it have pushed me farther in astronomy in school and, helped me along? And so I kind of took that attitude when I first started doing public speaking way back. And I have worked with a lot of kids that were just amazing, girls and boys both.
Sure.
And it's always fun. I've always found it's usually the kids that come up with the very honest, very open questions that sometimes can stump you.
Yeah.
So, in the different things that I have done and even still do now, I find myself talking to a lot of women, a lot of families, especially because the child says, I'm interested in astronomy
Yeah.
and my daughter wants a telescope. What do I do? And so I find myself working with parents and kids because a lot of times parents need advice on what to buy, what books. I just had somebody email me and say, okay, my grandson is interested in astronomy and he'd like to know about some books. Which one really cool thing is, because as everybody probably knows, I'm with the Astronomical League. We have a program called the Sky Puppies. And that program, if you are a league member and under 10, is free. And that's something that girls and boys can both start in astronomy and start learning about the sky, or really any STEM. I mean, it's amazing to get kids involved in any STEM program. So, I have enjoyed everything that I still do with them. It's a great challenge and so much fun just to have them around to talk to.
Right. I think that kids can soak up knowledge so fast too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
and come up with conclusions that maybe a little quicker than we do. Their minds work so fast.
Yeah,
and,
because
and come up with some pretty interesting angles, interesting questions. So I think that always makes it a joy for people that are involved in public education or formal education to work with kids. But unfortunately, kind of what I see, Terry, I mean, not only is there the problem of, as there has been for a long time, of gender equality in science and engineering. I mean, it's probably better, at least here in the United States, than it has been in all time for us. You go to other countries, you'll see that women have advanced at different levels in these areas. But to me, it seems to be like a human rights issue. Because with at least half of the world's population being female, there has to be women and girls that have the potential to be the next Einstein, to be the next major discoverer. And of course, there's these examples that we seem to be uncovering. It's like they lift up this rock of oh, by the way, did you know that this woman set up the formulas, for measuring the cosmic distance scale and these kinds of things. There's just like, holy smokes, why wasn't that brought to the forefront a long time ago? And of course that has a lot to do, apparent to me anyways, is it has to do with culture, politics, these kinds of things, where somehow it was more of a male-centric kind of a world, and I think that we are remiss in not really embracing all that women and girls have to offer intellectually.
Yeah, and hopefully, we see a lot. I think there's a lot more recognition, at least starting or growing, over the years. We see a little bit more and a little bit more. We still have a long way to go, I think. But you see, or at least I think we are seeing, when I am speaking, I have a lot of women, especially, that will come up and talk to me. And I think a lot of that is because when it's a little girl or their mother or whatever, if it is a female interested in this subject, it's so much easier for them to come to another female and talk to them.
Sure.
And you see, we see that quite often. And, to encourage the girl or the child or the mother or whoever it is to really talk about whatever it is, either astronomy, and answer their questions. and to help give them some guidance and encouragement. I think that's something that is needed throughout the whole process, because a few words of encouragement, I think, means a lot to a lot of people. I know, everybody likes to know either they're doing a job well, a job well done, or whatever work they're doing is nice. People appreciate that. And I think when you're a kid, especially growing up, a lot of times it's confusing, and especially for girls, where maybe they want to go into engineering or a science program or whatever. I think it helps to say, hey, it's okay. You can say, I don't know. And it doesn't mean you're any less. Ask questions.
That's right.
Be open. Just be able to understand you can do whatever you want to do too. You just have to work for it like everybody else.
Well, that's true. And I it's not that I don't think that women are looking for a handout of any kind at all.
No.
It's just it is just us understanding the language and culture of gender equality, and so we have a ways to go. And so women should be everything that they can be. Men should be everything they can be.
Exactly. And it should work together. It should, both
exactly.
Each one.
Yes, they should.
Each one has their value too. Right. So it's just a thing, I think, of learning to work together on a lot of this, accept each other as that equal, and to be able to keep moving forward. Right.
Well, that's cool. With the Sky Puppies program with the Astronomical League, what kind of, what stories could you tell us is going on there, especially when it relates to gender equality? Do you see at the child level a more equal, ability, more equal play amongst the kids? How are they responding to gender equality?
I think when you go to a star party that actually has a kids program, I think from what I have seen, and I haven't sat in on a lot of them or, really watched a lot of them, but I think especially when you're a kid, it's more of an equal, because that mindset isn't built in just yet. I think when you're younger, it's not really there. It kind of tends to, come about as you get a little bit older. And so there, I think you see more of an equality thing, because each one is just talking and being very open. I think it's when you get older and you begin to get either self-conscious or feel that peer pressure around you, that maybe instead of asking questions, you sit back and don't, and I realize that is a fear I had to get over. There's times, you might not understand something and everybody around you saying, yeah, I got it. And I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, I don't get this. I don't get this.
That was me all the time. I still didn't and still don't. So.
I think we all have days like that.
I can relate something in the nuclear industry that goes exactly to your point. One of the highest things that you can do, or one of the best things you can do in the nuclear industry, is have a questioning attitude, and we enforce that all the time. No question, if you can come out of left field and ask a question of the groupthink and say, well, why don't you look at this? And then they'll sit there and they'll go, oh, we never thought about that before.
Yeah.
It's like, it's important to have a questioning attitude for everything. You don't have to be a cynic about it. You can be a skeptic, but you can always ask questions about, why do you think that, or why is this the way it is? Inside and outside of a learning environment. When you're doing your job, you're running into a problem, and everybody's thinking, well, this has to be it, and you maybe have a different idea. Say, well, it could be this, couldn't it? And then they didn't think about it. I ran into that in the engineering programs I worked on, and working with a bunch of engineers that were more highly educated than I was. And I was a lowly technician. I could ask a question and throw them for a loop, So if you know how to learn how to ask questions effectively, then you can be very effective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I thought I would show the website. It's a United Nations website for International Day of Women and Girls in Science. You can go and check it out and see more information here, but it's pretty interesting. And they've got great videos on here, and lots of information about gender equality and how women have made and continue to make their mark in science and technology today. So, and it comes from all over the world. So it's I thought it was important to bring this up, and I'm glad, Terry, that you agreed to come onto the show and talk about it. Now, to kind of segue just a little bit, we also have the Astronomical League Live 3 event, which you're organizing,
Yep.
and that comes on tomorrow. What can you tell us about the program?
Yeah, we'll be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Eastern Standard. Chuck Allen will be here speaking about the League Awards.
Okay.
And we will have our door prizes again. We're going to be giving away 3 Astronomical League calendars. So I'll be asking 3 questions, and those will be answered before the end of the program. So we will know the winners. John Goss is going to be on talking about our 75th anniversary this year for the Astronomical League and about some new projects we've got going on. And then we've got Don Knabb that will be on from Merrill, which is the Mid-East region of the Astronomical League. And he has got a really good talk to give. That will be very interesting. Mm-hmm. And our keynote speaker will be Rachel Cianetti. She will be speaking about dark matter and energy. So we'll start about 7 p.m. and we'll probably run till about 9, maybe a little bit later.
Okay. Sounds real good. I'm excited.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Me too. They're always good, and you have great speakers on, Terry. So thank you very much.
Yeah, there's a lot of good speakers out there, and we're fortunate now that we're online, we can reach farther than we've ever been able to before. So, it's really exciting and a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. Now, this is the league's 75th anniversary, right?
Yes.
This year. Is there a specific day that would be the anniversary day?
November 15th is our
late in the year.
75th anniversary, because we are going to set up a live event on that day with you and celebrate the league's 75th anniversary.
Oh, that'll be really great. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do a celebration show.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, and then we have the Alcon event that's coming up. And so, What are the dates for that again?
That is, I believe, August 4th through 7th. I do believe. Yeah.
Out of Albuquerque.
Out of Albuquerque, yes. Okay. So we'll see how the conditions are with COVID and what's going on. And my guess would be that, it will be partially virtual or maybe the whole thing virtual. We'll have to wait and see how things actually unfold. So that will be a lot of fun too. We'll be able to have speakers from everywhere for that.
Sure. So you'll want to tune in for that for sure.
Yep.
Terry, thank you so much. What's the lightning, the storm that you got behind you?
That's backyard, but we had a
so you did this picture.
Yeah, but it's like 3 pictures stacked on top of each other, 2 or 3. I can't remember. Yeah, that was, one of our summer storms here. It's better than snow. Right now we've got snow on the ground and I'm so tired of looking at snow. I want some sunshine.
I suppose there can be, I've heard of thunder snow. This was something I learned about as I got involved with meteorology a little bit. So
yeah, I've heard thunder snow. Yeah, we've had thunder snow here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Terry, for coming on to the show. And we will see you. We're going to see you tomorrow.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Scott. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks. Take care, Terry. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So as soon as Tyler gets off the phone here, we're going to have him talk a little bit about the next astrophotography contest that's coming up. But Jerry, why don't we switch to you for the moment, and we were going to talk about more of the mentor program.
Yep. So the topic for today that we left off last week at polar alignment error, and the next item on the list is I call it gear defect error. And there's two types of gear defect errors. One's periodic and one is non-periodic. And that's a big topic for a lot of astrophotographers. Mm-hmm. That's really one of the major things that people first learn about when they're trying to correct their imaging. Now, this I'm still going over this document just for anybody that's new. The document's about what errors are in your system that affect that, getting to that perfect star image. How many different, there's like 20 some things or 25 things that get in your way that are barriers to you getting that perfect image. And we're on item number 5 or 6 right now. That's so I'll be talking about that.
Cool. So Tyler, are you ready?
He's still on the phone. Yeah.
He is still talking to a customer. So, all right. Well, I want to talk about this image that's behind you, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
You've shown it before, but this is you running the control room at was the Dominion nuclear power plant. Is that right?
I'm not running the control room. I'm running a test. This was during an outage, and this is Unit 1 control room at North Anna Power Station, which is on Lake Anna. It's north of Richmond.
Look at all those dials. Jeez.
Yeah, that's all the instrument, all the readout and all the indicators and controls for the reactor. Mm-hmm. And so all this stuff gets fed up from the floor below, which is the instrument process control room. It's all analog. It's like a big analog computer system.
Yeah.
There's hundreds or thousands of parameters that bring up from the reactor and from the primary, which is the reactor containment in the primary loop for the reactor, and then on the secondary side where you have the steam generators and then all that stuff involving with the turbine and all the steam side. There's also parameters there, but we have a big protection system on the reactor. So we have redundant instrumentation. So for every parameter that's a primary system parameter, we have 3 or 4 different redundant indications of the same thing. And so that's why you have these groups of indicators. You see them bunched together here on the main control board in certain areas. Those are the channels that are involved with that 1 or 2 different parameters. So and that's me there sitting there at the desk.
I was
looking at the indications.
Jerry about that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, okay, if I'm going to tease him, I got to show my old.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of cool. This is in 1982, and you can see another interesting thing to look at is up here in the upper right-hand corner is the computer display for the parameters, and all it is a 25 by 80 character display, like old DOS display was, and it has each line is a parameter and then a value and then maybe another indicator. So that's what this is. These are all primary indications from a computer system.
It looks like mission control.
This is the same technology that's basically, in fact, the plant computer system was basically the same technology that was built in the 60s for Apollo missions. It's pretty interesting. I was lucky enough to be able to work on that equipment and understand it and get a feel for it. It's we had core memory. Yeah. People know what that is. We had, and the CPU, and it's transistor logic. There was no, in fact, Apollo was more advanced than some of the stuff we had. We had transistor logic, all these hundreds of boards that were like all the gates, all the, we had probably, I'm trying to think, it's probably at least 400 or 500 circuit boards that had all the different logic circuits on it that made up the computer system. And we'd replace those and repair them. So it's like being brain surgeons on a CPU working on individual transistors.
Right. Oh
if you can imagine.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, and
So,
we had a
lot
paper
to keep
tape
track of.
punch to load programs, or you would thumb in the programs with a panel. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody, I'm sure people out there have heard of thumbing in programs into the computer.
Would it be like flipping switches or
Flipping
something?
switches and loading memory directly with a binary code.
Oh my
And
God.
you would hand enter the bootloader. So you would start it up and you would hand enter the bootloader, and then it would start running, and that would go to the paper tape punch and start loading it off the paper tape punch. So you bootstrap yourself up to where you could load off the disk at that point. So it's a sequence, and it's all manual.
Yeah.
The kind
Incredible.
of systems.
Incredible. All right. Well, let's switch over to Tyler. Tyler, are you with us? Still on the phone? Okay. So we're gonna. I think he's getting off right now. There we go. There we go. All right. Hey, Tyler. Oh, he stole your headphones, Jerry.
Yeah, I know he's got some of those David Clark. Those aren't David Clark headphones, though, are they?
No, they fit my fat head.
So we have an astrophotography contest coming up. Tell us more about it.
All the same rules apply. I just got off the phone with Patricia. Actually, that's who I was on the phone with. She's our event coordinator, if you want to call her that.
Okay.
She sets up all the rules and regulations for our contest, and prizes are going to be 18 by 24 prints.
Okay.
Decided that's a fair, decent size for winners. I can't remember the prizes. I apologize, everybody. Please don't hate me.
But there's going to be prizes,
There
right?
are going to be prizes,
There's
yes.
going to be prizes, and they're cool. So, but this is astrophotography is different in the respect that we're opening this up. You don't have to use Explore Scientific equipment.
Nope.
It's anything, right?
As long as it's a DSLR attached to it, I don't care what it is. That's just the only requirement. It's DSLR. It can be DSLR with a telephoto lens, a prime fixed lens, or a telescope.
Any telescope, any brand,
But
anything.
you have to be in a legacy member to enter. That's it.
Which is a free membership.
Free.
Yeah.
And you get to wonderful benefits that Explore Scientific offers in the legacy package.
That's true.
So I mean, I don't know why you're waiting. Hurry up. But it opens February 18th.
They can't get there yet until they can join now, I guess.
You can join now. It's free. And if you want, you can sign up for platinum and get better.
Yeah, if you're buying something from us, you definitely want to buy a platinum. That's true.
If you buy the platinum, then you get promotional deals. You get first dibs on possible prototypes that we come up with. And you always get tickets at events, and they're usually free for all our
not prototype. You're not going to get prototypes, but you can get into. You might get into our beta testing program, something like that. That's possible.
Right.
That is possible.
And you might get to touch a prototype.
That is true. Right. And you also get, you get quality service, and that's
always get that.
I know, but not at the platinum level. The platinum level is a whole different league.
Oh, they treat you like a king. Then,
it's a whole different league.
I thought we treated everybody like a king.
Yeah, we treat all our customers like kings.
No, what Tyler's trying to say is that we do have things like advanced product replacement. Mm-hmm. We have special things that we do with platinum members. We do. So it's all good. It's all
worth
good.
it in the end. It really is.
So the critical date is February 18th, right?
It's the start date. It's a month long.
It has to be with a DSLR camera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when does it end?
March 18th. So it's
March 18th. Okay. All right. So get out your old DSLR shots if you got good ones. If you don't, take new ones and try to win some cool prizes.
That's the point. That's the point.
Thanks very much, Tyler.
No problem. You'll take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Okay. So at this point, Jerry, it's all yours.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna let's see. I've got several different things I'm going to be talking about. I'll go over this basic description of what we're talking about. Then I'll bring up some other displays. I'm going to be showing some actual data from mounts that we've worked on. So right now I'm going to share this. See that?
Yeah.
So just to back up a minute, I'm going to go to the top. I wrote this paper. It's all not quite showing everything. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay. So this is a paper I wrote probably 3 years ago, maybe, about the things that basically imaging errors that contribute to poor astrophotographs. And the standard that I'm looking at is basically a perfectly round star that's critically sampled and looks perfect. Basically, world-class imagers can do this kind of work, and they're probably pretty familiar with what I'm talking about in here overall. And I've started out. There's two categories of errors that are causing errors I want to just talk about. One is things that are built into your equipment, okay, which I call intrinsic errors. And then there's other things that are outside the equipment, which I call extrinsic error causes. It's kind of a fancy word, but that just means environmental and local, effects, independent and separate from the equipment. All right, so where we're at in this, the last 3 episodes or so that I talked about this, we've covered all this stuff down to gear defect error. All right.
Mm-hmm.
This is number 4 on our list of things on the intrinsic errors that are in the equipment. And most astrophotographers and even some non-astrophotographers may be aware of, they hear people talk about periodic error and auto guiding and all the stuff involved with that. So periodic error is basically a fundamental error in the gear train caused mainly by run out, and I've got a drawing to show you here, and offsets and stuff on wheels and spurs or bent worms. So basically it's a smooth oscillation. Usually it's a smooth oscillation, and it's based on the fundamentals of worm period. So on a mount, on a gym mount or any mount, you've got a ring gear or a wheel that's driven by a worm, right? And the worm has a rotation period, and depending on how many teeth there are in the wheel, that rotation period. So for example, if you have a 360 tooth wheel, that means each turn of the worm will be 1 degree, okay? Mm-hmm. And 1 degree is equivalent to 4 minutes of time in the right ascension axis. So the worm period would be 4 minutes for a 360 tooth wheel gear. So the periodic error, if there was any periodic error in a worm, it would show up as an oscillation over a 4-minute period. It would be like a sine wave.
I see.
Over that period. So that's periodic error. There's another aspect to this gear defect error. It's called, and it's everything else. Okay, it's lumped into everything else called non-periodic error. All right, non-periodic errors could be caused by manufacturing issues with the quality of the gear, which leaves small defects, and these small defects cause little spikes. So so if you were perfectly smooth, if you had no non-periodic error and you just had periodic error, you would basically have a real smooth sine wave, okay, oscillation over that 4-minute period. But since nothing's perfect, you have these other issues that are little defects in the gear where you have spikes. Now, I'm just talking about the gear system. I'm not talking about the measurement and we'll talk about that in a minute with auto guiders. There's other issues with auto guiding that add errors into it also that are independent of this. But in terms of the worm and the wheel, you have non-periodic defects, which are these they cause spikes in your data, in your tracking, mm-hmm. and the little burrs and cuts and little thing, and then there's also things that we've seen over time where you have stored energy. So when you're rotating a system, right, a gear, if there's energy stored up in that system somehow and it releases, you know, if let's say you have some kind of a stiction problem, okay, it'll sit there and stick for a second and then it'll release the energy, right? So anything that bounds energy up into the gear train will spike it.
Sure.
So that's another type of energy or another type of non-periodic error that you might have. There's a couple of things we do to mitigate some of this. The biggest thing we do for non-periodic error mitigation is we've moved from spur gears, which are basically two gears next to each other, driving each other hard, you know, they're hard against each other. And you can detect every little defect in the gear in the teeth, right? We've moved that to a pulley system where we have a belt and two pulleys. And the belt is a shock absorber, acts as a shock absorber for these little spikes. So it makes the non-periodic error, smooths it out and makes it less than what you
see.
So over the last 5 years, all the mount manufacturers have pretty much moved to pulley belt systems versus a spur gear system. You'll still find spur gears on lower end systems, but pretty much everybody's moved to the belt pulley system. All right.
Right.
So let me bring up this other picture. So this is a fundamental drawing that shows you a little bit more about periodic error, the fundamental. You could either have out of round ring gear, okay, which causes the mesh. So now you have a mesh problem. So think about this as the ring gear, and then down here horizontally to it is a worm, and it's turning, right? And then you've got the teeth getting further apart and closer together, okay? So as over a 24-hour period, you get with an out of round, it's twice a day where you have the mesh furthest apart, and then twice a day where you have it closest together. And that's what causes a really low oscillation. All right, that's another type of defect. The other one is an offset defect, which is what's on the left there, where you have one shift causing a high and a low once a day. So typically you have both of those. You have an offset and you have an out of round condition to where they combine. That's another type of gear defect that you could have on your system, depending on how well it's manufactured. So typically, and basically these gear defects are mainly due to manufacturing quality and how much money you want to spend. Because you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a near perfect gear system and still have a small amount of periodic error.
Right. But there's no amount of money you can spend and get what's called a perfect, because there's no such thing as perfect. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah, you could keep throwing money, millions of dollars at it, and still never achieve perfect. So
right, and it depends on what your goal is, what your overall goal is. That's something to keep in mind. So you have to balance your needs against what impact the errors have. So if you try to correct an error to the nth degree, right?
Yeah.
And you ignore other errors, that one you corrected to the nth degree is not a factor anyway. You spend all your money trying to correct that error.
Oh yeah.
And you've wasted your money because you haven't changed anything.
Right.
Right. So you really got to understand all your different error sources in the system.
That's true. You go after the major ones, you know.
So let me share another drawing. So now I'm going to show you what periodic and non-periodic error looks like in terms of a guide graph. Okay. All right. Let's go to tech prep. All right. So let me share that. All right. So you see that?
Yes.
This is so there's a couple things here. There's a related problem when you're doing these measurements. So you need to measure this. How do you measure the PE? That's a fundamental question. Okay. How do you measure your error in your gear system? Your PE and your non-PE. Well, typically the way you correct for it too is through an auto guiding system. And an auto guiding system is just a camera with a telescope, a small telescope that looks at the stars, and you got software that basically locks on the star and controls your mount to keep the star locked onto a given pixel in your image. So it basically speeds up and slows down your mount in RA and adjusts it in DEC to keep the star on the same pixels in the camera. Okay, it locks it onto that position. So when you do that adjustment, when you do the corrections, you can record that data and understand how far the star is moving back and forth, up and down, left and right. You can measure that. And there's a fundamental problem, though, in the fact that the measurement you're doing is a combination of different errors, not just your gear defect error or your periodic error in your gears or non-periodic error. You have this thing called scintillation, which is the stars moving around to you, and that's another. So that's an extrinsic error cause, and that's this one called scintillation error that I've got right here. I don't guess you have it on the drawing. So I'll go back to the document here in a minute to talk about scintillation. But so when you're measuring the PhD, when you're using PhD2 to record your guide log, and you're correcting for your PE, you have two terms. You have the scintillation error that, depending on how fast you're sampling the star, that can be a big problem. And you have the periodic error. Now, fortunately, it works out okay because these things are slow moving. These are really long period type things. If you're looking to correct a periodic error that's got a 4-minute worm period, or even a 10-minute worm period, like our Exos 2 mount has, that's got a 10-minute worm period. That's a long, slow oscillation. Unfortunately, the non-periodic errors where you have these little spikes in the gear system, and you also have energy storage where it releases it all at once, auto guiding will not correct that stuff because it's not fast enough to correct it. So, for example, you see here on this chart, right? You see this where you have these spikes, okay? Can you see that on the display? You have these spikes, you've got some changes, but then you've got every once in a while, you've got these peaks. Those are things that aren't corrected basically when you're auto guiding. So that's what you see here, these spikes. So let me bring up another display here. It's detailed on a frequency spectrum. And you see how noisy it is. See all this noise here, but then you've got some fundamental peaks in this chart. This is a periodogram is what it's called. It's basically tells you what frequency content this noise has when you're guiding. And you got the fundamental frequency, okay? And then you've got these harmonics based on the pulleys that are in the system. So for example, this peak right here is at 133. This is the fundamental 10 minutes, 60 seconds divided by 4.5. 4.5 is the gear ratio for our pulleys. So every rotation of the small pulley, you've got this peak that shows up. Okay, that's why you got this fundamental here, or this 133 second period for that. And then the interesting part is you can see there are 10 teeth on this small pulley. So if you take 133 and divide it by 10, every time you get a tooth engagement, you'll see it right here. That's the 13-second period. So that's kind of cool that you can detect this kind of stuff in that noisy signal that you have. This noisy signal, you can detect all these different components of the signal. Now, everything else that's in here, all these different lower level noise, that's noise. That's basically non-periodic noise. Typically, when you say periodic error, you're talking about the fundamental, which is 600 seconds. I don't think I've got this scaled right. Is this, well, no, there it is, 600. That's about 600 seconds at that peak. So that's the fundamental. This is the worm period. and this is on the Exos too. So that's how you measure it and look at it. And then to correct it, all you do is just do little fine adjustments until you minimize these peaks. Okay, and that's the whole goal here, is to minimize the impact of this. And so the PE on this measurement over the, I don't know how many minutes this was. It's probably, I think it's like 60 minutes, perhaps, or 30 minutes. Well, let's see what it says here. It's 1202. So it's 1200 seconds. So that's 20 minutes. That's a 21 minute. It's about a 20-minute period, over 20 minutes. So over 20 minutes, it's got a PE value of a little over 1 arc second PE. That's what it corrected to. But again, you can still see these other things, and each component has its own contribution to that PE. So, are there any questions about that?
Well, there was people wanting to know about just periodic error in general and how that might be improved. And I brought up the fact that back in the old days on film, when the exposure times are so long, that some, very serious astrophotographers would go and polish their gears. Okay.
Yes.
They'd use gear polish, and maybe you'd have to remove the motor, okay, from the worm shaft somehow, and then attach like a drill.
Right, and run them. Right.
And then you would power it up, and you're painting with like a paintbrush onto the worm wheel and onto the main, crown gear, and you're going, making several 360 degree,
Yeah, Alex has done that with the Exos 100 gears. Early on, he did some polishing like that, lap polishing on the Exos 100 to get. So what you're trying to do there is get rid of this non-periodic error stuff, all these little gear defects that's called spikes, because it's easy to, if you get rid of every spike, then you got a slow oscillation to correct for. Then it's easy if you're manually auto guiding like they used to do in the day. You could just watch it drift tiny bit, and then you could tweak it back and then wait for it to drift a tiny bit again. It's not going to be doing this jumpiness.
Right.
Now you have to deal with scintillation, of course, when you're guiding. I don't know how sensitive your eye is to scintillation. Depends on your magnification and all that. But you don't chase that stuff.
Right.
And you tune the auto guiding system, the PhD2, to not chase. So you don't want to, basically, you don't want to have too fast an exposure rate.
But you look at some mounts that are like super expensive mounts that are using other types of drive systems, like harmonic drives, for example. Those are smoother.
Right.
A lot smoother, but they come at big cost.
Well, that's part of the cost. So if you're going to spend a bunch of money for a gear system, they want to make sure they're as smooth as they can get them. Because you're going to be spending a bunch of money anyway, regardless if they're smooth or not, because of the nature of the drive system. So if you're buying that high dollar drive system, customers are going to expect that there's not going to be any of these spiking defects.
Right.
Right.
Right. And when we say high dollar, we're talking about many thousands of dollars.
Right. So
interesting. Okay.
Any other questions? So that's just an introduction to what the periodic error, non-periodic error is.
Let's see if we had any.
The other, I guess, I'll talk about scintillation on another program, but basically, when you're doing measurements with the auto guiding system, you have to consider that you've got scintillation in the signal also.
Sure. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up for today, Jerry. So I do want to mention that, of course, today is the final day of the Winter Star Party. We've had 3 amazing nights of legacy lectures that they've had. We got to watch John Dobson last night talking about, he covered many different topics, including a lot of his beliefs and thoughts on cosmology. John Dobson is a legendary figure in amateur astronomy, and it is his namesake, the Dobson, or that was used to popularize an alt-azimuth telescope that he described looked like a cannon, and it's today called the Dobsonian Telescope. It's been called that for a long time. John Dobson himself did not like his name being used on a telescope, but it kind of stuck, and so during the lecture that he's giving back in 1995, maybe, or 96, he mentions a nasty letter that he sent to Meade Instruments about how they were building their so-called Dobsonian telescopes, and he complained that that if we're going to use his name, that we should at least build a system that he says works. So what he didn't know until much later, because I got to meet him face to face much later, is that I was the one that opened up that letter at Meade Instruments and read it. And so I responded to him, thanked him for sending that letter out to us and everything, and then I took that letter to our CEO for him to evaluate the points that he was making, and as an effort to make improvements to the design. Meade they did make gradual improvements to their Dobsonians, and lots of them are out there. So, including local astronomy club here has one of the older Meade Dobsonians, and we've used it successfully on many sidewalk astronomy nights. So, but it was a great lecture and everything. I finally caved in. There was lots of commercials about Mickey's Brownies. Of course, I know Mickey, and she runs the food truck out there at the Winter Star Party. Did you eat at the food truck when you were there, Jerry?
Yeah.
Did you?
I think I think I had that. Yeah, I think
Mickey's
I had some
been
of those.
at Winter Star Party, and she goes to the.
We were right next to it when we
I
were
know.
there in
There's a
14. We were
reason
like
why we're
we
right
were like
next to it.
20 feet away or 30 feet away. It's easy to.
I don't want to walk too far to go get my Mickey's Brownies. So,
Right.
anyways, I just broke down yesterday. I just couldn't stand it, and I bought some. So there's going to be some delivered here. I'll let you know if they arrive fresh, Jerry, so you can get some too.
That's good. Yeah, that'd be good.
Anyhow, well, we are at the 5 o'clock hour. We will be back in 30 minutes with the pre-show for Winter Star Party, and the show, the last programming that they have gets started right at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so hope you guys are there. Go take a break, have something to eat, and come on back, because we got a lot more to talk about. So, and is there anything else you'd like to add there, Jerry?
No, it's great. The Star Party's been great. I haven't been able to attend all of it, but I've been able to see quite a bit of it over the last few nights, and I plan on watching some more, of course, this weekend.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, that's the great thing, is they're all, they're now up there to watch forever. So, okay, all right. Well, take care, and we'll see you in half an hour.
The Southern Cross Astronomical Society of Miami, Florida is proud to present the 2021 Winter Star Party Virtual Edition, February 8th through the 11th. Because of COVID, we will not be able to get together in person this year, but we won't let that stop us from getting together online with old friends and make some new ones. There will be all new presentations about double stars, astroarchaeology, Mars exploration, and more. Enjoy classic videos from past Winter Star Parties by Tippi D'Auria, Dr. Mike Reynolds, John Dobson, and more. Then join us February 8th through the 11th from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.explorescientific.com. facebook.com/winterstarparty. Mark your calendar. See you there.